Hello, I'm Father Robert Sirico, president of the Acton Institute for the Study of Religion and Liberty here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we're taping this early in the week of March 23rd. We're taping this in anticipation of a meeting on Thursday between President Barack Obama with His Holiness Pope Francis at the Vatican in Rome. As the President stands before the Holy Father, the Pope will have keenly in the forefront of his mind an awareness that the man who stands there is representative of an optimistic nation, a nation who in great part elected him because it recognized a great flaw at the founding of our nation, indeed a scar that disfigured the very ideals upon which the United States was predicated. More than any other nation in human history, this nation was built on the idea that all men were created equal, that human freedom was at the foundation of this noble experiment. Consider this. The last African to be born into slavery in the United States died a mere 3 or 4 decades ago. So to have achieved this progress in a relatively short period of time is no minor achievement. In anticipation of Thursday's meeting between the Pope and the President, some commentators have already made a great deal about Obama's past involvement with the social justice progressives in Chicago parishes in the 1980s. They will point to his activism and office in Catholic churches and contacts with Catholic priests and various other activists in Chicago as an indication that there's a great deal of simpatico between him and the Catholic Church. Yet what President Obama brings with him on Thursday to the Apostolic Palace is not a concern for the Church's social mission to the poor and the marginalized and the alienated, as much as it is an activism based on the kind of ideas put forward by Saul Alinsky, who instrumentalized the Church, her teachings, her priests, and her institutions on behalf of certain political agendas. Such an approach will not be unfamiliar to Pope Francis, who dealt with similar efforts in Latin America in the 1970s and 1980s, in the form of liberation theology, which he consistently rejected and undermined, offering the Church's authentic social teaching as an alternative to that model. I have no doubt that the American bishops have clearly made known their concerns to the Pope with regard to their dealings with this administration in the area of healthcare policy, especially as this pertains to the HHS mandate and the way in which this attempts to control Catholic property in the form of our healthcare institutions and indeed curtail religious liberty for all Americans. Now, some may think that the Pope's expressed concern for economic inequality might dovetail very nicely with Obama's professed concern for the same thing. I think such a reading would be very superficial. And here's why. Francis's concern about economic inequality are far more anthropological, by which I mean more concerned about the very nature of the human person from the first moment of their existence until their natural demise, than they are political. Whereas President Obama's concerns are far more political and far more economic and far more divisive in terms of class struggle and envy, bringing about a political constituency to support his policies. The Pope and the President are simply beginning from different starting points. Let's look at some of the historical backdrop here. Catholics represent in a very unique way the diversity of the American ethnic population. We have become the melting pot in the United States. Catholics have participated in some of the greatest writing that the United States has produced. We've built some of the great skylines of Chicago and New York, contributed to the cuisine of New Orleans and San Francisco. Catholics have been involved in the production, acting, and writing of the most monumental films and the most memorable plays that have ever been produced either in Hollywood or on Broadway. Through hard work and diligent toil, Catholics have become among the greatest entrepreneurs in American history, some of the finest craftsmen and workers, literary geniuses, and the like. Catholics have also built the largest network of private social service agencies, including hospitals and schools, orphanages, and the like, throughout the country to serve people not because they are Catholic, but because we are Catholic. For better or for worse, Catholics have participated in and given their lives heroically in America's wars. Yet, as if to retrieve the sadder and less liberty-loving traditions of the American past, Catholic identity in this great and generous nation is under severe stress. Some of its cause is the confusion and insecurity of an immigrant population trying to fit in, to be accepted, and to blend in to the American culture. But some of it emerges from the advancing mentality of what France's predecessor, Benedict XVI, once called the dictatorship of relativism, the notion that there are no particular truths in the world and that everything really is equal to everything else. This idea of relativism has even infected many of those in the Church, but has not infected Francis. So what to make of this meeting between the Pope and the President? It will be a pleasant enough meeting with smiles all around and gifts exchanged. It will be an appropriate and prudent meeting between two prominent world leaders who are attempting to do their best to find solutions for people who are in difficulty. It will not, however, result in the kind of great spiritual bond that emerged after President Reagan met with John Paul the Great in their day, a bond that resulted in the demise of communism. Pity that.